Jiva, this Jiva is only a this Jiva is now in Advaita because of ignorance. If you drop this ignorance, you will see yourself the Brahma. This Vishnu that the Advaita posits is not anthropomorphic. That means he is not a human being. It's not a human body. He can manifest in any material form. It is not the material form for the beings in this earth is the 5 elements: Akasha, Vayu, Anila, Anala, and Prithvi. Whereas this Vishnu is not made of these 5 elements. He is made of something different. He can manifest in any form for that matter. The matter is different in different heavenly lands according to the philosophy. So he can exist in any form. He is the central of all force, power, and will. Anything that is in this universe, he is the center of gravity for them. That's what I say. In the center of all force, power, and will, he controls everybody's will. He controls everyone's power, and he controls everyone's drive, power, force, etc. So that is total dependence of the Jiva and the Prakriti on the Brahma or the Vishnu. Now, how does he do all these things? He keeps us separate from him. Maya is his unconceivable power. Here, Upanishads talk about the Maya. Bhagavad Gita talks about the Maya. And Dvaita and Vishishtadvaita treat Maya slightly different and Advaita totally different. So this Maya is his unconceivable power. And he uses this power of Maya for 2 reasons. One is to create this universe. He doesn't create, but he uses his power Maya to create the universe. And then one other thing, one other aspect of this Maya is, it is this Maya that hides him from us. Our spiritual nature of Jivas means the Maya kind of puts a pressure on you to not get liberated. You have to struggle hard. Like if you are swimming against the current with loads on your legs, then consider that as the Maya. The Maya is the Maya for crossing the river, but Maya for crossing the samsara is a different. It puts hindrance on you. That is what the Maya does. So the Maya has an effect of suppressing your ability to get moksha. You have to struggle hard to overcome that hurdle to get liberation. Okay. Now, we briefly talked about the Vishnu. Now we'll talk about the Jiva. The Jivatma, there is a certain sentiency in us. That ability, the log of wood cannot move by itself, but I can move by myself. And that ability that I have to move by myself is facilitated by this entity called sentiency. Sentiency, see, log is inert. The opposite of inert is sentiency. And therefore, every Jivatma is sentient, including a virus. This sentiency is atomic in size. This Atma is what provides that sentiency. And in the Dvaita philosophy and in the Vishishtadvaita philosophy, this Atma is atomic in size, like an atom. Whereas in Advaita, Atma is infinite. See the difference, the big difference between the Bhakti philosophy and the Jnana philosophy is that the Jnana philosophy says The Atma is pervading everywhere. The same Brahma that we called earlier is just called Atma with respect to a human body or an animal body. But that is like you have space and you have a part in space and there is air in that space. There is air outside the space, a part space. So it's like that. It's only just because we think we are the body, the Atma seems to be limited to the body, but the Atma is not limited to the body in the Advaita. I'm giving directly, uh, both the three aspects just for you to understand the difference. So this, what is this Jivatma's problem? The Jivatma's problem is immersed in transmigration, that is samsara, birth and death. Why? Because ignorance. You are categorized as living beings, and in here, Dvaita says men and women are different. Men are born as men, women are born as women until the end of the Kalpa. The Kalpa is about 31 trillion years. Just to give we have done this in a different class. One Kalpa is 100 years of creator Brahma, and the creator Brahma's 100 years is equal to 31 trillion years. So for those 31 trillion years, according to Dvaita philosophy, men are men, women are women. That a woman cannot be born with a male body, according to this philosophy. Now, my sukha and your sukha are different. I derive happiness in doing something. You derive happiness in doing something else. The magnitude of sukha that I enjoy and the magnitude of sukha you enjoy, any one of you, is different. That's what it says here. The jivas have differences in their experience of sukha or happiness, and they are subject to separation as male and female jiva. Male jiva has a certain level of sukha, female jiva has a certain level of sukha. Now, why it is like this? We have to go deep into it, and that is for you to do the extra work if you are interested. In this class, we don't cover. Now, there are these infinite jivatmas, and they are classified into three permanent groups. And when I said the permanent groups through 31 trillion years. Uttama are what is called the superior. They are liberation entitled, mukti yogya. They are ready for liberation. Madhyama are the average. They are nitya samsaris. They are always being born and dying, born and dying, born and dying. Adama are the inferior. They are tamo yogyas, means they will never even get a human life. They are always below subhuman level, and they could be pichachis or daityas or some. We'll see some definitions of what they are later on, but they don't even come up to the level of a human life in the entire 31 trillion years that we are talking about. Afterwards, it's a different reset happens in the next kalpa based on what sadhana we do in this kalpa. So those are the three classifications with respect to the jivas. Now I said who are the mukti yogya, the jivas that are entitled for liberation. Deva, gods like Indra, Varuna, etc. Rishis, Pitrus. Pitrus is a character, is a class by itself, and they are the mains, they say, Chakravarti, kings, and superior humans. Humans who have really evolved over their lives doing sadhana, and they have in this reset of this kalpa of Brahma's 100 years, they are classified as superhuman, superior humans, and they can get liberation. How do they get liberation? By discipline, practice, and grace of God, they are liberated and enjoy eternal bliss of the self. Now, they are liberated means they don't have any more births. If you compare the Advaita, the liberation can happen any life, any human life, But here it can happen only at the end of a human life. And it is not, there's no Jivan Mukti in Vishishta and Dvaita. There is only Videha Mukti, or the liberation after death, and there will be no rebirth. Nitya Samsari is the average human beings. They do practice a disciplined daily schedule. They do some prayers and all normal things, experience eternally a mixture of happiness and sorrow. So they have, some days you feel good, some days you don't feel good because something happens. And so there is happiness and sorrow. Now, what is this Nitya Samsari? If I want to give you a practical example, see, we all have worked in different professional careers. I don't know how many of you have really realized it. Even when a company hires us, it expects certain things from us. For the salary that you negotiate, it expects certain output from me. If I provide that output, if I function according to the expectations of the management, I stay put in that job. I don't get promotion. To get promotion, you have to do more work than just what is negotiated for the job, for the salary. The additional work could be like helping somebody, someone else having a problem. You help them, and then you are recognized as a leader, and then you may get promotion, or you may get into some of the management aspects like maintaining the budget for the department. In addition to the work that you have to do some extra work, then you get promoted. If you don't, you stay where you are in that job. That is what a Nitya Samsari is about. Having got a human life, there is a certain expectation of a human being. And if we just do those expectations of the human being, we do get another human life, and we just are going in the human life again and again and again. We don't move up to the Mukti Yogyas. That's what that means here. And the Tamo Yogyas are the Daityas, the Rakshasas, Pishashas, and the most inferior human beings. They experience eternal sorrow in eternal hell. The eternal sorrow in eternal hell means for all the period of their life, they will be unhappy. So this is Tamo Yogyas. So these are the three classifications, and you sit in one of these all through the life of creator Brahma, which is, we said earlier, 31 trillion years. Now, how do you get to, like this moksha is what we are going to discuss partly. Only through devotion and self-surrender to the supreme being, that is Vishnu, can the jiva secure salvation or liberation. So you have to surrender to the will of Vishnu. And when you and that surrender has to happen with a thought of devotion, not like indifferently, but you should really believe in him. You should love him. You should offer all service to Vishnu, and then you will become noticed. In your business life, if you are in very special projects, there is a special focus on you. How well you do is what the management looks for in a situation like that. Here also it's like that. There is an observation by the Lord that you are doing beyond expectation of a human life, and you are devoted to Vishnu. See, this devotion is really is what we practice in our work life also. If you are devoted to the company, you will move up to management positions. If you are not devoted to the company, you will not go up in the management ladder. So this, they are all derived from all our philosophies. It's not that somehow the management got some extra brain. No, this is all there in the philosophies, and that is being applied or copied in the business life. So this Jiva can secure salvation what does this devotion do? It differentiates people. It dictates a difference. And, the entire universe is soaked in evil, and therefore the jiva has to be shielded from the supreme. It said earlier, Vishnu is a Saguna Brahma of extreme power and compassion and all those things. How do you separate a very good entity like Vishnu from a very evil human being? That is what is he has need to shield God from the world soaked in evil, so that he preserves his absolute purity. He does not, by any chance, get contaminated. That is the Dvaita philosophy posits here. Now, this Paramatma or God, he is personal but has no physical body. Personal means he's a being. He is a being with some very, very huge power and capabilities that are listed here. He has no physical body, but that doesn't mean he cannot take any other body. He can take any body. That is what Madhvacharya says in his philosophy. This Paramatma is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. You can you all get the meaning of this. Sarvajna, Sarvashakta, and Sarvagata. He pervades everywhere. Those are the three characteristics of this Paramatma. And he has extremely huge knowledge and bliss and many supreme qualities. And these qualities are like his power, his compassion, his yashas, fame. All these are his supreme qualities. There are about half a dozen of them. So he is endowed with all these unparalleled. Unparalleled means no human being has anywhere near the qualities that are in Paramatma. And when the devotees surrender to him, he is very compassionate to them. And so with this, he is called the quintessence of perfection. There is no other word to describing other than perfection. Perfect in all respects, not in one respect. We may be perfect in one respect, but he is perfect in all domains, in all parameters. He is perfect. So this Paramatma is a God of this nature. Now, where did you get this kind of description for the Paramatma? Dvaita says there is Vedic authority. There are several Upanishads, there are several Vedic sections that talk about Vishnu or Narayana having these character, these powers. All these are there in different aspects of in different Vedas, and therefore this Dvaita positing of such a Saguna Brahma is Vedic sanctioned. That is what this Vedic authority supports me. Now, such a being is Saguna. We said attributes. It's not like Nirguna of the Advaita, that you cannot see him in any way. You have to experience him. The senses cannot perceive him. You have to experience that Nirguna Brahma. Whereas Saguna Brahma, you can feel in your mind. That is what this Saguna Brahma is. So this Vishnu pervades and is not anthropomorphic. We already talked about this. We'll move on to the next one. So why is it so? He says there's a rhythm and order in nature and looks purposeful. See, if there's a rhythm and order in nature, is it just has no reason to be there? It happened to be there just like that, and people are following the rhythm or the nature. No, Dvaita says there's a purpose for that. Somebody put that rhythm and order in there. Without somebody putting that rhythm and order there, it cannot be that you can have that rhythm. So there is a reason for being so. Now, what is the reason? Now, you see, if there is no such reason, then how do you even classify somebody is superior, somebody is inferior? So it is necessary, this purposeful rhythm and order is maintained because there is one superior and there is another inferior. The inferior has to be, otherwise everybody would be the same. If there is no such rhythm put in place by someone, everyone would be the same. So this is what it says, that this reason seems unsatisfactory if a superior independent entity is unacceptable. You have to have a superior independent entity in order to have this rhythm and order. Like, in the, if we take again the business example, the CEO of the company sets the rhythm and order and everybody follows that. So that is what it means here, that the rhythm and order will not follow if there is no independent superior entity. So that intelligence that sets this rhythm and order is omnipotent, omniscient Brahman called Vishnu in Dvaita. So we are coming back to defining more and more of this Vishnu. We already said he is the center of all force, power, will, auspiciousness, goodness, beauty, grace, responsiveness. Everything is centered in him, and everything emanates from him. Whatever human characteristics that you can conceive of, that is in Mahavishnu in spades, they say, in multiples of thousands and millions and zillions, like that. That's how you can understand. So he is the quintessence of all perfection, and therefore having all these gunas, auspiciousness, goodness, beauty, grace, responsiveness, he is called Saguna. Saguna means with guna, with attributes. He is called Saguna Brahma, as Saguna Vishnu. Now, how to preserve this nature of Brahman and yet address a world of imperfection and evil? So, if this nature of Brahman is so powerful with all so many gunas of extremely high magnitude, then there is the human beings who are imperfect and evil. How to preserve? You have to make sure that this Brahma does not get polluted. That is what really what Dvaita talks about. Now, if he comes into contact with this human beings, there's a potential for him to be polluted that he does not want to. Madhvacharya wants to avoid it. And that's the reason he says theory of reality of two entities. There is the one independent God with all the gunas, saguna, all the characteristics and attributes and everything. And then the other dependent, Prakriti, Jivas, they are both eternally coexisting. It's not that first Vishnu came and then he created the human beings and the Prakriti. Not like that. They have been there all together all the time, because when you say when you are creating, there is going to be an association. That association Dvaita does not want to accept, and therefore both are eternally coexisting. It's like two parallel lines. Two parallel lines, they never meet anywhere, and therefore they are eternally coexisting. They are eternally they are dependent. In that case, they are independent, but in this particular case, they are dependent but not generated by this Vishnu. A huge difference with respect to other philosophies. Now, this Vishnu is Sat Chit Ananda. And Ananta. Sat Chit Ananda means Sat means existence, Chit is consciousness, Ananda is bliss, Ananta is infinite. Now, all these are described in the Vedas, and Dvaita feels empowered to use those descriptions in the Vedas to call him the Brahma of the Dvaita philosophy. So these are Vishnu's essence and being, his substance and attribute in an infinite and absolute sense. He is, the last time I gave the example of the palace and the most beautiful room in the palace, and a speck of dirt in the outhouse, in the labor quarter of as a room in a labor quarter where there is some dust. So that's the level of difference that Dvaita describes between Paramatma and Jivatma. So he is knowledge and knower, bliss and blissful. That's what the Satchit Ananda describes. That he knows, he is a Sarvajna, he knows everything. He is happy, extremely happy all the time. Now, his body is not that of matter. Our body is made up of matter. The matter consisting of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. His body is not made of that matter. Substance of his body is Chaitanya and Ananda, as well as all those attributes. We talked about yashas, compassion, power, all those. So those are his body, according to this philosophy. The Vedantic characteristic of Brahman, Vedanta describes this as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Asatyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma. So this is what Dvaita directly translates it from the Vedas. It is Ananta, infinite, and Amala. Mala is tainted, blood. Amala is untainted. So you have a Vishnu who is all the Satya, Jnana, Ananta, Amala, and then you have human beings that are imperfect. So how to preserve this nature of Brahman and get validating the world of imperfection and evil? See, we said earlier they they exist together. If they have to exist together, there is if there is any interaction between this Vishnu and the Jivas, then there's a potential for not preserving this pristine state of Vishnu or Brahma, and therefore Madhvacharya, he proposes the total independence between the in terms of their being independence, but in terms of controlling, there is a dependence of these Jiva and the Jagat. That we have to understand all the time. When I say independence, not so much in existence, but independence in behaviors. So the Dvaita, as the name implies, Dvaita in Sanskrit is two, Dve is two. So theory of reality of two real entities, one independent God and the other dependent. So the Jiva is the real, the Prakriti or the universe is real, and God is real. In Advaita, God is real, Jiva and Jagat is transactionally real. It doesn't exist per se. See, for example, we always talk about this deep sleep experience. In daytime, when you are waking up, when you are in the waking state, you experience body and mind. That's all you experience. You don't feel the existence of anything else. But when you go to deep sleep, there is no body, there is no mind. You know that, and but still you existed. You know, if you so there you are talking about one reality, that is what you existed in deep sleep, but on top of that, you are superimposing the body and mind in the waking state. That's what Advaita says. That's what we'll study a lot about that as we go forward. So I'm just in the context, I'm giving that point to note here. So Prakriti, Jivas, etc., both are eternally coexisting. Even as much as there's a difference between God and Jivas, now we are talking about differences in Jiva and Prakriti also. So they are both eternally coexisting, dependent, not generated by him or from himself. So they are there all the time, coexisting, but not generated by Paramatma. The coexistence is supported by his will and entirely controlled by him. How did this coexistence happen? He has a role to play in keeping that coexistence always intact. That is the Dvaita philosophy. Now, how does he do it? Because of his extraordinary powers. Because he has so much extraordinary powers, he can appear and sustain in any form. Now, if you take the case of the slavery in the United States, the master and the slave were totally different. They coexisted, but still the master controlled the slave. It's a crude example. Somebody may not like it, but I gave that example. But anyway, I got that example in my thought process here. So I have given it, take it with a grain of salt. So even as he possesses worship forms like Shalagrama, idols, etc., they are not his actual forms. They're only a symbol. Shalagrama we always use for Vishnu, and we use Vishnu idols. Today morning we witnessed Vishnu idols. So they are not his actual forms. They are a means for the jivas to identify with something that is not him. That is what is meant here. It's a proxy. Salagrama is a proxy for Paramatma. His form is only a means for transaction. Now, if I don't have any form, and this Vishnu sits somewhere who cannot be reached before salvation or moksha, how do I even get to know this Vishnu? If I need this to do the sadhana on Vishnu, I need to know, say, Vishnu. And for that, these forms of Shalagrama or idols are given. And through worship of these proxy presence of Vishnu, you start developing a devotion to Vishnu. Because it's not just the puja, the worshipping of the Shalagrama stone. You got other sources, prayers, and all those things that glorify this Vishnu. So you develop a pattern of living where you start liking this Vishnu. Once you start liking this Vishnu, at somewhere around you develop an intense prema, love for this Vishnu, and then you totally surrender to him. That is how this sadhana graduates step by step. So his form is only a means for that transaction by which he can worship and continue on a sadhana path and acquire the needs and wants he wants at this time, because everything has to be given by the Lord, Paramatma. And then ultimately, using the same process, you move up in sadhana. So for some mature seekers, the idol worship can be a means. So if even to worship an idol, you have some you need to have some maturity. We hear some people, oh, what is there worshipping a stone idol? Now I have to understand what is that stone made up of. If the stone is made up of Paramatma, that's what Advaita takes you to the hilt of that. Then same Brahma appears as the stone. Then an idol made of stone is as much Brahma as anything else. So that knowledge is what it's called is here mature seekers, trying to identify everything in this universe with the Paramatma is the maturity that we need to develop to worship idols also. So we discussed this earlier, but he has no particular material form, but he can manifest in any form. He, as we know, even in our Puranas, we talk about Mahavishnu appears in forms like Sankarshana, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Keshava, etc. These are all different forms of the same Vishnu with different powers. If you really see, the difference comes in what kind of weapons he holds in his hands. So they are mix and match, and then they will, use the weapons in different occasions for different purposes, to slay a demon or something else. And therefore, they get these various names, Sankarshana, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, and Keshava, etc. And then this same Vishnu, he takes incarnations like Rama and Krishna. See, this is again his own his compassion. If God did not come down to earth as Rama or Krishna, we'd be totally ignorant of what God is. If we don't get to really see the role what Rama played in upholding dharma or Krishna played in teaching dharma, then we would have been, we don't know what dharma is. So this is his compassion. He incarnates The yada yada hi dharmasya glanirvati bharata abhyuttanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. That's what Krishna says. So wherever there is an adharma, he comes and leads us in the righteous path. So these incarnations provide us that opportunity to know more about God than otherwise we would not know, we would know anything at all. So they may appear as humans, but they are blissful in view of the enlightened. Now, an ordinary person may think, oh, he's also Krishna is another human being. He has another human body. That's what Shishupala, Dantavakra, they thought he's another human being. But the mature people like Yudhishthira, Bhishma, they would know that Krishna is not a human like them. That's the enlightenment that they have. So that's the value of the incarnations to human beings. Now, we said that they all the three coexist at the same time. So that is by his will and entirely controlled by him. His unconceivable power, what is called the Achinta Shakti, Maya, we discussed earlier, it functions in two ways. One, the Maya is used to perform all the cosmic activities of creation, sustenance, and dissolution. We always talk about this. Something that is created has to have an end. And so there is an agency required for the creation, sustenance, and dissolution. And that agency is Maya Shakti. And then the second one is it covers the spiritual nature of jivas, involves them in samsara. So as I was saying earlier, there is a hold on us. That hold is Maya. You really have to overcome the hold, the hurdle, and then only you can overcome that Maya. And it is a very, very deliberate uh, effort in Dvaita. In Advaita, it is not a deliberate effort. It is the human ignorance is given. The Maya is related to human ignorance because you are the Atma. You think you are the body and mind. So that is the burden is on you for being in Maya. Whereas in Dvaita, the burden, more than burden, it is the power of the Lord to put you under the effect of Maya. Is it fair? Uh, that's the way Vishnu wants it, according to Dvaita. He alone, at the maturity of Jiva's evolution, bestows his grace on the Jiva and lifts him from samsara. So, when this Jiva is showing the devotion, the love towards the Lord notices it. And when the Lord notices that maturity of Jiva's evolution from ordinary, going after the worldly pleasures is the lowest level of Jiva's evolution. And then step by step, rising to recognize the superiority of Vishnu. That is the level of maturity that he needs to be noticed by Paramatma. And the Paramatma then bestows his grace on the Jiva and takes him away from samsara. This Paramatma is eternally liberated. He was never under any samsara. Whereas in Advaita, it is not like that. In Advaita, you could be a samsari today, tomorrow you could be a liberated person. Parama in Dvaita and Vishishtadvaita, that is not true. Paramatma is eternally liberated and is not bonded any time. The creation of the universe, etc., are his transactions. He does his creation, etc., because the human beings need a place to work out their karma, and that creation is there through his Maya Shakti, and he conducts business that way. So nurturing the created universe is sustenance, and its dissolution is pralaya. So once a universe is created, you have to provide for the beings, the living beings or the jivatmas, for their sustenance. You have to provide some support. And when they are tired, you have to find a way for them to get back to some rest. That is what is sustenance and dissolution is. Now, we'll continue on this doctrine of salvation. What is moksha? Salvation of man is the sole object of Madhva's doctrine. So, getting liberation is the object of this philosophy, Madhvacharya, and it is in fact it's really the Upanishads objective is that getting the realization or moksha, and the same message is brought out in the Dvaita also. Now this avidya is inert and functions by the will of the Lord. Now what is avidya in avidya Dvaita and avidya in Advaita? They are different. In avidya in Dvaita is not recognizing the full power of the Lord. Avidya in Advaita is not knowing yourself. That's the big difference. So in Dvaita, your body is real. That's what we, whatever yathartha we discussed last time, whatever the senses perceive, that is real. So avidya here is that not knowing the full extent of the glory and the power of the Lord. So will of the Lord is the root of the bondage of Jiva, and only the Lord's grace can release him ultimately. So until the Lord recognizes that you are doing the sadhana and devoted to him, he will not look at you. That is the until he does not look at you, you are in bondage of Jiva, and only when he looks at you, when the grace of the Lord falls on you, you ultimately get released. Only when your manager and the other managers in the business notice you are doing well, then only you get promoted. So this you can draw a parallel between philosophies and businesses quite a bit that way. Now, who are these? We talked earlier about these Mukti Yogyas and Nitya Samsarins and Tama Yogyas. We'll deal a little more in context of salvation. Mukti Yogyas are there worthy of liberation. They have to slowly develop these qualifications. It doesn't happen overnight. This Mukti Yogyas is something you achieve by doing the sadhana or the practice of devotion towards the Lord. Nitya Samsarins, they just go about the world doing maybe doing some dharma, doing some adharma. Continuously, they suffer birth and death. We talked about Samoyogyas also, subject to eternal perdition. They are condemned to the most inferior life eternally. That is what a Tamoyogya is. Now, here I'm showing here a picture of the life of the three kinds of people: the Mukti Yogyas, Tamo Yogyas, and Nitya Samsaris. Consider this as a beltway. In the Mukti Yogyas are in the outermost beltway. This lane, I have shown the separation of the lanes by thick barricades. That means you don't cross the lanes between the Nitya Samsaris, Tamo Yogyas, and Mukti Yogyas. They continuously go only in those lanes. And somewhere along the line, the Mukti Yogya gets noticed, his sadhana is complete, and after his death, he will not be born again. Otherwise, he'll be born and continuously dying in this lane. Now, the Nitya Samsarins, they are doing some good things, they are doing some bad things, but they are held in this particular lane. They don't have the choice of going to any other lane. Even you cannot go to an inferior lane. You have to be in the Nitya Samsari human lane. And then there is the Tamo Yogyas. They are always in their traveling in this birth after birth after birth. They are in the same condition. They never get go anywhere beyond where they are. So this is what we were saying earlier, that separation is eternal and complete between all these people. That separation is eternal to this, in the sense, to the extent of the kalpa, 31 trillion years. Now the next kalpa comes. If somebody is in Nitya Samsari, he may get promoted to Mukti Yogya in the next kalpa. He may not. We don't know. So this is the strict order in the Dvaita. Now I'll show you the what the Upanishads and the Advaita accepts. See, here there are only two lanes, and these lanes are not so strictly barricaded. They are, you can go back and forth between the lanes. This lane, you are in the inner lane, means you are yes, I'm sorry, you are come by being born and dying. Whereas in the liberation lane, you will probably get liberated, even before death. You may get out of this lane, and you don't die per se. The body decomposes, and that's it. Because there is nothing else to. What is death? Death is the escape of the mind and from the body, physical body, mind, prana, etc. And when that for a person who is liberated, the mind is sterilized. There is nothing in the mind to bring another life, no imprints in the mind to get another life. So he gets even jivan mukti, that is what is called. Now here you can, even from a human life, you can take an animal or plant life detour, which is not done, which is not possible in the Dvaita. You only go in the one lane, whereas in the Upanishad models, this is possible at the end Advaita. You can go from a samsari lane to an animal plant life, or you can go from a liberation lane to divine life. You get a life as an Indra, or you can get a life as a Brahma or a Varuna or something. And then you come back to that lane again and continue your sadhana. This is generally the Advaita model that um, we have seen before. And in both this case, as well as in here, where do you get the energy or the power, you need fuel to travel these lanes? That is our karma. Our karma has so much power in it to bring on so many lives. So you are eternally, it's like a solar power plant you have on your car, and the solar power plant is generating all the energy that you need, and you keep on going. You don't even have to stop for a gas at gas station. Okay, so much about these two. Now, the doctrine of salvation, continuing. Now, this spiritual fulfillment is ultimately possible through bhakti alone and nothing else. In Advaita, it is jnana. Jnana is what? You realize that you are the Atma and not the body and mind. That is the spiritual fulfillment in Advaita. Here, the spiritual fulfillment is total bhakti to Vishnu, and that can attract to oneself the grace of God. So, as you are noticed, if you are noticed as that ultimate bhakta, that ultimate devotee of the Lord, then that gives you the cause for salvation. That is the means for getting over the birth and death cycle. This bhakti is a means and an end in itself. In Advaita, bhakti is a means, it's not an end in itself. You have to do meditation after bhakti. You do all karmas, offering it as a service to the Lord, and that is bhakti. And then your mind gets purified, and then you do meditation, and in the meditation, you drop this identity of body and mind. We have seen that in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So, and the knowledge generates love, and love strengthens knowledge in the bhakti method. So you get to more, and once you start devotion to the Lord, then you develop more knowledge about the Lord. As you develop more knowledge about the Lord, you start loving Him more and more. And so they play against each other, helping you to strengthen both knowledge and bhakti. That is the essence of the bhakti in Dvaita Vedanta, and also probably to some extent in the Vishishtadvaita. The eligible jiva will attain moksha by the grace of Paramatma arising out of the aparoksha jnana in the jiva. I'll explain this. So you are eligible for moksha, that is recognized. Then, when does it happen? Aparoksha jnana in the jiva. Aparoksha jnana means, say, the aparoksha jnana in Dvaita and Dvaita are totally different. Here the aproksha jnana, indirect knowledge of the Lord. That is what aproksha jnana means here. So of the destruction, of the form of destruction of the relationship with Prakriti. So you devote all your time to Bhagavan, then you are trying to isolate yourself from the Prakriti or the nature. Therefore, that intense knowledge of the Paramatma is the aproksha jnana in Dvaita. So the self-knowledge called the aproksha jnana in association with Prakriti. So the even as you are here, you know that the Paramatma is everything, and you continue with knowing more and more of the Paramatma. He will attain to the bliss of self-knowledge. He will immerse himself in the experience of the qualities of the Bhagavan. So as you mature in this bhakti, you spend more and more time of your life in this bhakti. In fact, some of them, you even thinking of the name of the, saying the name of the Lord, tears drop off their eyes. That is the level of devotion. This Lord is so great that tears of joy, seeing that God in, as your, help, that there develops the kind of knowledge. That is the self-knowledge we are talking here, not the Atma Jnana self-knowledge. The knowledge here is what is talked about of the greatness of the Lord. So there are three stages of bhakti in this context they are being discussed. For stage one is prior to paroksha jnana, that is knowing indirectly the knowledge of the Lord. There is an understanding of the doctrine. First, you have to understand what Dvaita philosophy means. That the Jiva, Prakriti, and Paramatma, three independent things. That you have to three real things, but two dependent on the independent. So that general understanding of the doctrine is the first stage. Now, after you understand that, then you start practicing what is taught in those doctrines. That is the second stage. And then as you are practicing, doing the sadhana, there is a spiritual realization that aproksha jnana that we talked in the previous slide, that enlightens. That he is the ultimate, that Paramatma is the ultimate salvation for everybody, that attainment of divine grace that comes into him. That is what is called the indirect knowledge. So the third stage is, then when you get to that, you continue your sadhana, and when you continue your sadhana, there is a revelation, the absolute dependence of the jiva on the God. So it occurs to him. See, right now, we seem to think, oh, I'm independent, I can do anything. No, we can't do anything. There is absolutely no, how can I say, guarantee to say that I can do anything. Everything is kind of scripted. And when I understand that that revelation, that everything is scripted, that I have to live by the will of the Lord, that is that stage 3 begins. And then removes the ignorance of the jiva. When that happens, that revelation happens to you that I am nobody, I am his servant. That removes the ignorance of the jiva. And what is that ignorance? Ignorance hides the intrinsic nature of the jiva as consciousness and bliss. Now, then, what this to be understood is, I am happy, I am bliss goes away. He keeps me happy, he keeps me conscious. That knowledge comes. So the ignorance that is hiding, that will be gone. The ignorance hides from him his real relationship to Brahman otherwise. So these two have to be removed. Removes the ignorance of his intrinsic nature of jiva as conscious and bliss, that he is capable of doing anything. That ignorance has to be removed. And another ignorance that has to be removed is a relationship with Brahman, that he is dependent on Brahman. That realization has to come. So that ignorance also has to be removed. So such a bhakti, when you get to that level of bhakti, bhakti. Satya bhakti is an end in itself that gives us liberation. That's what the end in itself means. So that will take me to liberation. Now, every jiva is different. My jiva is different from your jiva. So individuality of each jiva differing from every other, every jiva in this universe, having different grades or capacity for attainment of this. So I retain I have a certain capacity. You have a different capacity for attaining bhakti. Now, this the difference is perceived, it continues even after moksha. After moksha, there's a gradation there also. See, this is the total separation that Dvaita posits. That even after moksha, there is the gradation. There is no one single like in Advaita, you realize your Atma, that same Atma pervades everywhere. That is not true in Advaita. There is different grades. You exist as individual beings with different levels of attainment of this. And that is, we will see those what they are in the next slide. So liberation in the full sense comes only after the fall of the physical body. I talked about it earlier. There's no Jivan Mukti in Dvaita. After death, you will have no more births because you have only after death you can exhaust the prarabdha karma. So then what happens? After death, you will go to Brahmaloka, the land of the Brahma, and you stay there until the end of creative cycle. This going to the Brahmaloka, we talked in different contexts. Ativaka, the body, the jiva leaves the body through the Sushumna Nadi, and then there are guides that conduct the jiva towards Brahmaloka, and there he stays in Brahmaloka until the Brahma's term is over. And then once the term is over, he goes to Vaikuntha. That is the ultimate liberation. Now, the system also recognizes fourfold distinctions in moksha. Moksha of you and moksha of me are going to be different. Depending on my capacity to have the devotion and your capacity to have the devotion towards the Lord. They are different. Advaita is based on difference. The essential basis of Advaita is difference. Therefore, that difference continues even in the state of moksha. What are those four? There are four of them. Here, they use the word called ananda taratamya. Even in moksha, you have a different ananda, and I have a different ananda. So salokya, the lowest level of moksha is you reside in the same region as Vishnu. Vaikuntha is a big place if you want to think of it like that. So you reside somewhere in Vaikuntha, that is salokya. Samipya, if your devotion is a little more than the salokya person, then you will get closer to Vishnu. You probably enter the palace. Then further refinement in your devotion, you get Sarupya, having a form similar to him in many respects. See, we talked earlier about Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshana. These are all forms similar to Vishnu. So you get a Sarupya like that. Vishwaksena. Vishwaksena is a very good example. So Vishwaksena is in the more so in the Vishishtadvaita tradition, but you can something similar to that. So that is Sarupya. And Sayujya means togetherness with him. You spend more time with Vishnu. Maybe he will invite you for a game of chess or game, whatever something. You will, whatever is the entertainment there, that you will get that togetherness with Vishnu. That is, so these are the four kinds of moksha, and even in moksha, that difference continues, and the difference never fails in Dvaita. So moksha, no jiva can acquire cosmic power of Vishnu. Even if you get to moksha, you are less than Vishnu. power of creation, that power of sustenance, all those are interested only in Vishnu and nobody else, not even Lakshmi. Even Lakshmi does not, we discussed that in the last class a little. So even Lakshmi is inferior to Vishnu. So if I get a liberation and you get a liberation, we get to one of those four Salokya, Samipya we discussed in the previous slide, but we will never be Vishnu because there's total separation between the Jiva and the Paramatma. So like the power of creation, I cannot have, nor acquire the infinite measure of auspicious attributes of Vishnu. All those gunas, Saguna Brahma, that I cannot get. I am always inferior to him. And with this, the person has acquired the moksha, and there he is happy. He is happier than, he is much more happier than a human life. And that's the liberation. He will never get another human life. And with this, Dvaita concludes the sadhana that is required for attaining the moksha. So this is about the Dvaita Vedanta. Let me stop screening here. Okay, is it better today?
Thank you for repeating this, Ramu.
All right. So is understanding better today than last class?
Yes, for sure. Little bit better. It synced in a little bit. Maybe not all, but a few things can sink in.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, there is a question in the chat, I believe. Let's see. Okay, hashtag, that's all. If you have any questions, you can put in the chat box. That was one of the suggestions here. Okay. Gopal, why is your mic not working? Madhavan, can you unmute this Gopal Gopinath?
Unfortunately, I cannot unmute. I can mute people.
Okay. Okay, you can call in by phone, Gopal, that's fine. Okay, his microphone is dead at his end. You can send the question. We will. I'll post it in the email, Gopal. All right. Let's see here. Shall we conclude the class?
Can you explain?
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
He said, can you explain again the nature? That's the question, he said, of Jiva in moksha.
Nature of Jiva in moksha is you are in that land of Vishnu, and whatever is the, it will not be a human body. That life you have is not of the human body. It's a different material. And what that material is, I don't have much understanding of that. It's not the material of the pancha, 5 elements. So this word appears to be using the word hiding. Hiding means what it is basically in Advaita and Dvaita I can differentiate. In Advaita, that what you call hiding is your own mistake. In Dvaita, there is a pressure put on by Paramatma to hide himself from the evil. That is the understanding I have. We see that in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verse 25, Aham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha mudoyam nabijanati mame mamajam avyayam. So he says there, I don't show myself to everybody. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha, because I am endowed with this power of Maya, and therefore I am not showing myself. Now, that is one of the probably Dvaita statements that the Dvaita depends on that statement. Now, here in the Advaita, it is slightly different when it comes to that, because it is again, everything traces to the ignorance of who you are. You have created that um, sense of being hidden by him, because there are two Shaktis, that is what Advaita talks is Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. The tamoguna, the tamas hides Paramatma from you, and then it is really how to say, when it, in the context of the nature of Jagat, if you take, nature of Jagat is Paramatma, but the tamoguna that you have, the tamas, it is of the nature of ignorance. Since you don't know that, but you see something, your sense objects see something, and you project the universe on that hidden Paramatma, hidden Brahma. So the responsibility or the burden is with the individual, whereas in Dvaita, because Paramatma is superior to the Jiva, and the Jiva has not risen up to the level of devotion, there is a context developed of the hiding being voluntary by the Paramatma. That's about the best I can explain there.
No, I had a question.
Sure.
This is Ramana. In Advaita, if you attain moksha at the end of kalpa, you are done. You don't come back at all.
You don't come back even in the middle of the kalpa.
Okay. But in Dvaita, do you come back? Because you are always.
No, you don't come back. You don't come back to human world. In Dvaita, you go and live in Brahma's world until certain time. And then you go to, when Brahma retires, he goes to Vaikuntha, and you also go to Vaikuntha.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? We'll have no class for next time. But as I know, there is no class. I'm trying to work out a guest speaker. If it works out, I will let you know, and then you will have the class. Otherwise, enjoy the week. Enjoy next Wednesday, and we'll meet 2 weeks from today. All right.
Thanks.
Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All right.